is a tutorial on how to use either the Bond Magicord or the Bond Embellish Knit spool knitting machine. Both machines will produce a very nice, even 4-stitch I-cord of any length that can be used on a variety of projects. I have the Embellish Knit, so that's the machine I will use. There are 3 items in the package: the machine, the clamp, and the needle. Also, there is a small amount of practice yarn. And when you are practicing, I suggest that you use this yarn because it is the correct gauge for producing a nice sample of the I-cord. But once you have learned how to use it, you can use any sport weight or lighter yarn. And the manufacturer's instructions tell you all about this. For this demonstration, I'm going to be using a sport weight cotton yarn, actually a Taki Cotton Classic. One note about this machine is that bulky yarns, such as this one, will not work in this machine. And they say that worsted weight yarn will not work in this machine. But I am able to make Cascade 220 work in the machine. Here's an example right here. And I understand that Harrisville Shetland wool also works in this machine. And I do have a video, a separate video, that shows me making this I-cord using the Cascade 220. So you can look at that one later. Before we start, I suggest that you sit at a table and have a pillow or a folded blanket or something soft positioned near your feet. And toward the end of the demonstration, you will see why that's needed. And it's not for your feet. So now on to the demonstration. And one more thing before we begin, I want you to take a look at the machine. And you'll see that it has a crank. And again, the manufacturer's instructions tell you there's an arrow, and you should always turn the crank only in the direction of the arrow. Otherwise, I believe that the machine, that's not good for the machine. So, now before we begin, I want you to turn the crank and just watch the hooks. They go really just one hook goes up at a time, and as it goes up, the other ones go down, and they rotate around. And another thing to notice is that each hook has a latch, and the latch is right here. And this is the latch in the closed position, and this is the latch in the open position. It's really just down. And all of your latches should be in the open position. And they probably are in the open position, but you should just rotate it around a couple times just to make sure that they are in the open position. Again, this is the open position. The latch is down, and this would be the closed. This would be sort of halfway between open and closed. You don't want it like that. And this would be the closed. Oops. This would be the closed position. You don't want it in that position like that. You want it open, so you just pop it down. You can use your finger, you can use anything. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like when you're using it. You'll be cranking, and the hooks are going to be going around like that. All right, so the first thing you have to do is thread the machine. So put those out of the way, and we're going to be using this lovely orange peach-colored thread. And so you take the thread, or the yarn rather, and you put it through this bottom hole here, and then through the notch here, and then you drop it down the middle. And you can just drop it down, or you can use the needle that's provided to thread it down. Either way, whatever is easier for you. It's pretty easy just to drop it down. There you go. Comes out the bottom. And then you take the clamp and you clamp it on. And it's really a weight. The clamp is really a weight. Now, you want to keep a hold of this because if you just let it go, it will just pull all your yarn right through. And you don't want that. Oopsie. Because you want to knit your yarn. So you pull that back, and with my left hand, I keep a hold of it, and I let the weight rest like that. Now you'll notice that the yarn comes out of this hole in the bottom, and I'm resting the embellish knit on the table, but I don't obstruct this hole. I keep the I sort of keep the hole over the edge of the table so that the weight can hang freely. But I am holding the yarn somewhat tightly with my left hand, especially for the first 2 rounds. Once you get to round 3, you want the yarn to move very smoothly and freely, but the first couple rounds you need to hold it somewhat tightly so that the weight doesn't pull it through. Okay, now we're on to round 1. So you turn the crank, and remember to turn it in the direction that the arrow is pointing until the first hook catches it. So, and make sure the latch is down. So the first needle has caught the yarn. That's good. Now the first needle's going down. You're on the second hook. I'm probably going to call these things hooks or needles, but basically I mean hook. Okay, you're on the second hook. Now you don't want the second hook to catch it, so you take something like a crochet hook, or you can use your fingers, or you can use the needle provided, but I find a crochet hook works the best. And you pull it around to the back, or you skip it. And you come to the third hook, and you want the yarn to catch, so you let it do that. You come to the fourth hook, you don't want it to catch, so you pull it around. Okay, so you've completed round 1, you're back to the first hook. Now, this is an important round. In round 2, you're on the first hook right here. Okay, the yarn just cooperated. Down here is the yarn from the first round, and you want the yarn from the first round to drop below this little latch right here, and you can see the latch right here. Oops, see, there it goes. So, oh, there, I've got it sticking up, so maybe you can see it. Here's the hook, here's the first hook, here's the yarn for round 2, and here's the yarn from round 1, and here's the latch. So you want the yarn from round 1 to be below the latch, and you want the yarn from round 2 to be in between the hook and the latch. So I'm going to turn the crank, and that'll drop that latch, but as long as it's in between the yarn from round 2, that's where you want it. And you want the yarn from round 1 below the latch. You can turn it. Now you get to hook number 2, and you say you're still holding on to this yarn. I mean, you're letting it flow through, but you're holding on to it. Okay, you get to the hook number 2. There's no yarn from round 1 because you didn't let it catch. That's okay. You just let the yarn. You want the yarn in between the hook and the latch, and that's where it is, because there's the latch and the yarn's in between you. So you let it catch there. Okay, hook number 3, you treat it the same way as hook number 1. Now, a lot of times the yarn will not drop on hook number 3. Will not drop. The yarn from round 1 doesn't want to drop below that latch. I find if you can use your crochet hook, or I find if you just put your finger in there and push it down below that latch. So that's what I just pushed down below the latch was the yarn from round 1. So now this is the yarn from round 2, and you want it in between the hook and the latch. And again, here's the latch. So now that's number 3. And number 4, remember there's no yarn from round 1 because we skipped it. So the yarn's just going to go between the hook and the latch. Whoops, the hook and the latch. Sometimes my crochet hook catches there. Okay, so now we're at the beginning of round 3 because we're back to hook 1. And we're going to stop here for a second.